Zangoose and Seviper, like Butt and I, are rivals. The Pokédex entry for Zangoose in Ruby version reads, "Memories of battling its arch-rival Seviper are etched into every cell of Zangoose's body." In Sapphire version, Seviper's Pokédex entry reads, "This Pokemon will not give up its long-running blood feud with Zangoose." As a kid, I was more familiar with Zangoose because I had Ruby version, but I always thought Seviper was far cooler. After all, it is this awesome, intimidating snake, and it has this incredibly awesome back sprite. For some reason, when I was younger, I always felt like I purchased the wrong version, and then all the version exclusives that I wanted were on the other cartridge. Maybe this is just the grass is greener on the other side. I think that's probably what was going on. Anyway, whenever people suggest which versus videos I should do, this one always gets brought up because of the rivalry between the two Pokemon. That said, while they do have the same base stat totals, these two Pokemon are not made the same. Seviper has 73 HP, 100 attack and special attack, 60 defense and special defense, and 65 speed. Today I'm running a Rash Nature to boost its special attack and lower its special defense. I don't want to drop physical defense because Steven Stone is the final battle in the game, and as a poison type, I assume that Seviper is going to struggle against him. For an ability, we have Shed Skin, which is great against status conditions. It's going to be mildly useful throughout the playthrough, and then through level up, this is where things start to go downhill. Seviper starts with only Wrap, an absolutely terrible move, as you can see during this first battle against the rival. Of course, he's picking Mudkip because ground-type moves are super effective against the poison type. Now, luckily for me, Seviper is going to level up very quickly in the early game because it has the fluctuating growth rate. But unluckily for me, this poison type is going to take the maximum possible experience points to get to level 100. This is just another reason that Steven Stone is potentially going to be brutal in this run. Now, leveling up quickly in the early game is good because I can get access to new moves. Lick at level 7 and then Bite at level 10. This one is key. It's a special move in Generation 3 and it's going to give me something that I can use against Roxanne, since Wrap, Lick, and then Poison Tail at level 16 are all not particularly viable options. And training all the way to level 19 in what is essentially a speed run just doesn't make sense. Beyond that, Seviper gets Glare, Crunch, Poison Fang, Swagger, and Haze. But its move pool gets a lot better when we consider TMs and HMs. The standout moves are Giga Drain, Iron Tail, Earthquake, Dig, Flamethrower, and Sludge Bomb. It might have to use Thief for one niche purpose, and it also might have to utilize Rock Smash in order to get through Watson's Magneton. I find it really frustrating that the developers didn't give you access Dig before the Electric-type gym. They do in Generation 1. Why not in Generation 3? Anyway, gripes about Watson aside, we have to face Roxanne now. I'm level 14. I think with Bite and an Oranberry, Seviper should be able to pull this off. At least I'm hoping it's going to be able to. I expect this is going to be a very long playthrough. I just played Gulpin, which was another poison type with the fluctuating growth rate, and that run was absolutely brutal. By the way, when I was filming that run, I was using a new pair of headphones that I had just recently picked up, and they were constantly squeezing my head and giving me an awful headache. It was so bad that I decided to get myself a completely different pair, and I chose Raycon's Everyday Headphones. And well, that brings me to the sponsor of this video, Raycon. I have been really impressed with their everyday headphones because they're far more comfortable and ergonomic than my previous pair. I can now do long extended playthroughs of Pokemon Emerald without my head starting to ache. Well, at least from the headphones. The runs still do sometimes give me a headache. Another key feature for me is their incredible battery life, which is always important when I'm doing long playthroughs like this one. The everyday headphones boast up to 40 hours, and they also have a quick charge function, allowing you to get back 2 hours of playback time with only 15 minutes of charging. Now, one of the big things about Raycon that I really like is that they're affordable compared to a lot of the other options on the market. And the fact that they're affordable and they also have active noise cancellation is really key. That way I can stay focused when my Orange Cat Churro is constantly making noise and trying to get my attention. Now, I've always been pretty socially awkward, and choosing gifts for people has been a constant source of anxiety for me. Mother's Day is coming up, and so if you need a great gift idea, I would recommend Raycon's Everyday Headphones. They also have a happiness guarantee, so if your mom isn't completely satisfied, there is no risk. And that's exactly how I like to play my Pokemon runs, without risk, fully consistent. The pads that touch your head are incredibly soft, both in texture and in like springy, squishy feel. Also, the sides of the headphones feel like this beautiful brushed metal texture. I don't know, I find myself just touching the headphones a lot when I'm listening to stuff, so that's definitely a big benefit for me. Anyways, go to buyraycon.com/ScottsThoughts20 to get 20% off site-wide. This video was brought to you by Raycon. icon. Now, let's face Roxanne. Geodude is first. I go for Bite. It does more than half, causes a flinch. She uses a potion, which is great because then she's not going to use this item on her nose pass, which is much more defensive. It takes me 2 more turns. I knock out the Geodude and move on to her second Pokemon. This one takes similar damage. I don't flinch it, so it is able to go for Rock Tomb and drop my speed. Just not quite enough so that I'm slower than the nose pass. This means it's likely going to go for Rock Tomb on turn 1 to control my speed. But after it does that, it sees that it's faster and it's no longer prioritizing using the Rock type move. Instead, it's just stuck spamming things like Block, Harden, and Tackle, all of which are not good against Seviper. So after some back and forth, because the nose pass does take some time to knock out, I am able to defeat Roxanne and earn myself the first badge, which comes with a 10% boost to Seviper's attack. Alright, now are you all ready for this? It's time for Zangoose to make his entrance. Actually, her entrance, because I am running a female Pokemon today. This is specifically so I can't be hit by Flannery's Attract, and also so I can use Attract against Steven Stone at the end of the game. I said early on that these two Pokemon are just not made the same. So let's examine Zangoose. For some reason, it has the erratic growth rate instead of the fluctuating growth rate. This means that it levels up incredibly slowly in the early game, but then incredibly fast in the late game, requiring the minimum amount of experience to get to level 100. As the normal type in the pairing, this seems a little bit backward to me. You would think that they would give the normal type the fluctuating growth rate to nerf it in the late game, since the normal type is quite good, and the poison type is just not very good. Also, Zangoose's stat distribution is much better than Seviper's. It has 73 HP, 115 attack, and only 60 special attack, so it's obvious that I want to run an Adamant Nature today. I am only going to be using physical moves. It has 60 in both of its defensive stats and 90 speed. This ensures that it's going to be faster than every Pokemon in Emerald version. The AI Pokemon are really slow in this game. Then through Movepool, things just get better and better. It starts with Scratch and Leer, learns Quick Attack at level 7. Both Scratch and Quick Attack get the same type attack bonus, which is great for the early game. And then at level 10, it learns Swords Dance, one of the best setup moves in the entire game. I think the only 2 moves that are better than this in Generation 3 are Bulk Up and Calm Mind, just because they also boost your defensive stats, which can help in a lot of battles. And Zangoose is quite frail, which is a theme you're going to see play out a lot during this first run. Still though, it has some problems with Roxanne, because it's either going to have to rely on level 10 with a normal type move to defeat her rock types, or I'm going to have to level up to 13 to get access to Fury Cutter, or potentially all the way to 19 to get Slash. Beyond that, it gets Pursuit, Crush Claw, its signature move, Taunt, Detect, and False Swipe, all things which are not going to be useful in today's playthrough. Then through TM and HM and Move Tutor, it gets access to what feels like everything. Focus Punch, Water Pulse, Ice Beam, Blizzard, Giga Drain for some reason, Solar Beam for some reason, Iron Tail, Thunderbolt, Thunder, Dig, Shadow Ball, Brick Break, Shockwave, Flamethrower, Fire Blast, Aerial Ace, and Rock Smash, just in case we need a solution for Watson's Magneton. Most of the tutor moves are walled off in the Battle Frontier, but both Rollout and Substitute will be available for Zangoose today. Now let's talk about the early game. I'm going to battle every single trainer up until Roxanne, because I need as many levels as possible. The erratic growth rate really makes progress slow in this section of the run. I target all the trainers that don't have rock types, so I'm skipping the people inside the gym at least for now. But by the time I'm beating the last person on Route 116, my Zangoose is only level 10 and has just learned Swords Dance. So I'm not going to get to Fury Cutter unless I battle a bunch of trainers with Geodude and wild Pokemon. I wanted to try to avoid that scenario, so I battled Roxanne at level 10 to see how it would go. Geodude is doing a lot of damage every turn using Rock Throw or Rock Tomb. Roughly 1/4, it's going to take 4 hits to knock Zangoose out, and I do have an Oran Berry which will allow me to hold on a little bit longer. I set up all the way to +6, but this gets Zangoose taken all the way down to 2 hit points. Unless I one-shot all of her Pokemon, this won't be possible. And I am not close to one-shotting. The Geodude only takes half from my maxed out Quick Attack. So that's my first reset with Zangoose. Clearly I need to level up and get Fury Cutter at level 13. So I'm going to fight all the trainers inside the gym, even though they're a little bit slow, but Swords Dance speeds up my progress here. With all the trainers defeated, on Route 16 I battle wild Pokemon, leveling up to 13, and I teach Fury Fury Cutter in the place of Lear before heading back to Roxanne. My hope now is just that I can stack up Fury Cutter and then not miss with it, one-shotting the second Geodude as well as the Nose Pass. I take my time setting up with Swords Dance. I was lucky along the way this time with Geodude setting up once with Defense Curl, giving me another turn of setup. So I max out my attack and then I go for Fury Cutter. Unfortunately, Zangoose misses right away. Luckily, Rock Tomb also misses. Then Fury Cutter gets a critical hit, doing about half, but it's stacking up damage now. There's some back and forth here because the Geodude refuses to go down and Roxanne uses a potion on it, which is actually really good for me. Fury Cutter winds up, one-shots the second Geodude as well as Roxanne's Nose Pass. So in the first split of this run, things are not looking that good for Zangoose. Seviper is off to a faster start. That said, I think all of us know that Zangoose is going to perform better than Seviper. The interest for me in this comparison is not is Zangoose going to win, it's how far apart are these two going to be, because the poison type with the fluctuating growth rate I think is really going to hold Seviper back, whereas Zangoose with early Swords Dance and the erratic growth rate should be able to just stomp the remainder of the game from here. In this section of the playthrough, I want to go through all the advantages that I see Zangoose having. We've already covered some like early Swords Dance, but also early Fury Cutter, which does provide a way to get by Roxanne without having to grind to ridiculous levels. Also, Fury Cutter is pretty useful at pinging down my HM users to get them to low health so that I can catch them more consistently. So that's 3 advantages so far. Fourth advantage, on Dewford Island I can pick up the Silk Scarf, boosting the power of normal type moves. Fifth advantage, I don't have to fight Brawly now. I can come back to Dewford Island and battle him after I take on Flannery, making the one fighting type specialist in the region not a threat to my normal type. Now I made a decision here, which is to skip the Soda Pop House on the beach, which is normally an area of the game that I complete even though it's optional. I just like having the healing items, and a little bit of extra training prior to Watson tends to be a good idea. But with Swords Dance, I didn't think it was necessary. I'm also going to skip the Trick House and the rare candy that can be found within it, and go straight to battling the rival south of Mauville City. This battle is straightforward. He leads with Wingull, and I can set up Swords Dance here. The only downside is if it goes for Supersonic, or if it gets a massive crit with Water Gun. That did way more than I was expecting. Remember, Zangoose is fairly squishy. This Pokemon does not like to take hits. That said, I get set up to +5, I'm on red health, and then I can just use Quick Attack to stomp the rest of his team. Yeah, this is an easy battle even though he has a Combuskin. Proceeding towards Mauville City, I realized that I don't have any healing items in my bag, and I didn't want to backtrack to Slateport City and waste time. After all, I have an amazing Pokemon like Zangoose, so I'm just going to push forward even though the next mandatory trainer has a Magnemite. I simply save in front of him just in case this fight goes badly. I'm going to have to knock the Steel type out with only 12 hit points left over. I figured one Swords Dance and then Quick Attack would be okay, however Thundershock just one-shots me, so I take another reset here. I guess I'm going back to Slateport City to heal. Now that my Zangoose has full health, the Magnemite guy isn't an issue and I make my way into Mauville City. I'm grabbing Rock Smash, so let's talk about this move. I really don't like to teach it to my Pokemon if I can avoid it, because the only way to get rid of HM moves in Emerald is getting to the move deleter who is in Lily Cove City. That means I have to beat Norman. Holding on to Rock Smash, which is a base 20 power move in this game, until the 5th gym leader is pretty painful. So if I can avoid it, I will. For Zangoose, there is potentially the option to earn enough money to purchase Flamethrower from the game corner, but that requires a ridiculous amount of optional trainer battles. Plus, I would have to utilize Thief to go back to the earliest routes of the game and yoink a bunch of nuggets off of the rich trainers' teams. This is just not really practical when I'm trying to get through the game as fast as possible to utilizing Swords Dance. So I need another solution for Watson. It's pretty simple, level to 19 and then learn Slash in the place of Scratch. This normal type move has an effective power of 105, plus it has an increased critical hit ratio. I think this should be enough to manage the Magneton. I have to choose where to set up here. There's 2 options, either the Voltorb or the Electrike. If I set up on the Voltorb, I'll have better damage ranges to knock it out, as well as just being able to knock the Electrike out right away. That said, there is some downside to setting up on the Voltorb because it could go for Spark, causing paralysis, or it could also self-destruct, inflicting a lot of damage. I decided on the riskier path here, setting up on the Voltorb. I wanted to ensure that I would one-shot it. However, then I choose Quick Attack, which doesn't do enough damage. I was going for this because the Voltorb is faster than Zangoose, and and I wanted to move first and hopefully avoid paralysis. I prepared for this with a cherry berry, but burning it this early into the fight isn't great because Magneton's going to be using Thunder Wave. That said, being paralyzed isn't that much of a downside for Zangoose since it has quick attack, so it should still be able to move first. I continue my setup against the Electrike because it loves to use Howl when you're setting up. This is key, then I can knock it out and move on to the Magneton. Let's see how much damage I can do. I went for Slash here, I move first, and it does more than half, which is pretty good. But then Magneton strikes back with Shockwave, it does enough damage, and Zangoose faints. I tried one more time, but this fight is essentially the same as the last one. I'm able to get fully set up, but my health is pretty low by the time I make it to the Magneton. Unless I get a critical hit with Slash, I just don't think I'm gonna knock it out, and this time around I'm paralyzed, so he moves first with Shockwave anyway. Quick attack is not going to be able to knock Magneton out in a single hit. How can I improve this fight for Zangoose? Well, the answer is right around the corner. If I do a little bit more training, go up 2 more levels to 21, then my Zangoose has 50 speed. This is key because now I'm faster than the Voltorb by 1 point. Also, Slash has enough damage to knock it out in a single hit, so I don't have to get paralyzed here at the beginning of the battle, setting up once to one-shot. This will make it more likely for Zangoose to arrive at the Magneton with its Cherry Berry, and then if I can get 2 turns of Slash against the Steel type, I will knock it out. I set up fully on the Electrike while once again it spams Howl, and then I take care of it with Slash. Luckily, no static activation. Magneton comes in, I use Slash, bringing it down to red health. It goes for Thunder Wave, my Cherry Berry cures the status condition. Watson does use a Super Potion, but I get 2 more Slashes in a row. Well, more Slashes, he uses another Super Potion, but eventually the Steel type goes down. Manectric is all that's left, but I have Quick Attack, so I could move first if I wanted to, but it just goes for Howl and Slash one-shots. Watson is defeated. With this win, I earn myself the Dynamo badge. This one gives my Zangoose a 10% boost to its speed stat. This is one that I really don't need. Okay, let's go back to Seviper now. Unlike Zangoose, it doesn't have advantages, it has disadvantages. Number 1, I have to catch an additional Pokemon, in this case Shroomish. This is so later I can show the Giga Drain NPC a Grass-type Pokemon and get access to the TM. Second disadvantage, we do get access to the Silk Scarf, but it's not helpful because my best normal type move is a Wrap. Now I do have Poison Tail by this point, which is a pretty good same type attack bonus move, but Sludge Bomb would be much better. The TM for it is obtained on Dewford Island. That said, this is disadvantage number 3 because you have to have defeated Norman first, so I'm not going to be able to pick it up right now. But it's not all bad news. Seviper is a poison type, so it resists fighting type moves, and Brawly has no coverage. Inside his gym, I do a little bit of optional training to level Seviper up to 19 so that I can get access to Screech. This is going to be a decent counter to Bulk Up. Now I'm prepared, let's take on Brawly. Machop is first, Seviper whiffs a Screech, Machop goes for Bulk Up, then I hit it with Screech, taking it back to neutral defense, but it's got a lot of attack. Low Kick is able to do almost half to my poison type before I knock out his lead. This was not a great start. Next I'm going to go for Bite on the Meditite. Its only move that deals damage is Focus Punch, so it's essentially free. Then Makuhita comes in. Turn 1 I go for Screech, lowering its defense, it chooses Bulk Up, it has -1 defense now, so I go for Poison Tail, doing a lot of damage. Makuhita consumes its Citrus Berry, healing into green, and then it uses Bulk Up one more time, surviving my next Poison Tail. Brawly also has a Super Potion, so he's able to heal it to full, and this was when I started to get really worried. It's setting up with Bulk Up consistently, boosting its attack. Even though I've been able to control its defense to some extent, it's still gonna hit like a truck when it eventually does attack. He uses 2 Super Potions on the Makuhita, healing it while poison is slowly chipping away. I'm able to bring it back down to low health fairly quickly, and this is key to my success. It only gets in 1 more attack, which doesn't do enough damage, so Seviper is able to pull through with a win, although it wasn't as dominant as I was expecting it to be. With Seviper, it makes sense to take a different approach to the next section of the game when compared to Zangoose. This is when the 2 results are really going to start to diverge, because I need to do as many optional battles as I can right now. I want to train so that I'm going to be a decent level by the time I'm taking on Watson. So I complete the Beach House to earn myself the Soda Pop. I also go by the Mart in Slateport City to pick up the Harbor Mail so that I can get access to the coin case in Mauville City. I want to buy Flamethrower from the Game Corner as soon as I can in this run. With a fluctuating growth rate, it doesn't make any sense to skip the Trick House, so I'm going to complete this area so that I get access to 1 additional rare candy. I also continue my training around this area, getting Seviper to level 24 before I take on the rival. Still, this battle is really tricky. I can one-shot the Lombre with super effective Poison Tail, but then Marshtomp comes in and it has Mud Shot, which is super effective and does a lot of damage. Plus, it's dropping my speed speed every time it attacks. Because of this, it's eventually going to move first, and I'm unable to flinch using Bite twice in a row. Because of that, Marshtomp knocks out Seviper and gives it its first reset. I've fought most of the trainers to this point in the playthrough using Seviper, so it doesn't make a ton of sense to do extra grinding right now. I think the fastest way to beat the rival in this situation is to use Bite to flinch the Marshtomp once. If I can do that, then I'll knock it out and move on to the Slugma, which is obviously going to be trivial. It is a terrible Pokemon. I have one more loss before I finally pull it off. In this case, I win because I get all of the luck that isn't a flinch. A critical hit with Bite followed by a miss from Mudshot. So there are 3 different ways to win here, making the victorious outcome fairly likely. The Magnemite guy, he's annoying. I only have Bite, but it's actually doing decent damage because Seviper has really good special attack. That isn't something I expected from it when I went in to do this solo challenge. And speaking of special attack, I'm gonna fight as many trainers that have Pokemon that give special attack EVs, like Aroma Lady Rose, who has 2 Roselia. Unlike with Zangoose, which has a setup move, Seviper does not, so I'm gonna have to rely on raw damage in order to knock out Steven Stone's Pokemon at the end of the game, and I'm pretty sure I'm gonna be using mostly special moves against them: Hidden Power Ice, Giga Drain, and Flamethrower. Earthquake and Iron Tail would be the only 2 exceptions to that, but I think using the special moves will be slightly superior, especially since I've gone with a special attack boosting nature. It's also going to help me against Watson. Flamethrower is a little bit too far away for me to access right now before his Magneton, but if I level up to 28, then Seviper gets access to Crunch, and this move might give me what I need to defeat the Magneton. I can also head west of the city, go into the cave, and then pick up the Black Glasses to improve the damage of Dark-type moves if I really need a little bit of a damage boost. Still, I'd prefer to run the Cherry Berry because Shed Skin doesn't always activate, and I do want to avoid paralysis. I train a little bit more with Seviper, leveling it up to 30 before I take on Watson for the first time. Crunch is able to one-shot both the Voltorb and the Electrike, and then on the Magneton it's doing roughly 1/3. With the Cherry Berry, I'm going to get 2 attacks in for free before I'm paralyzed on the 3rd turn. I was worried about him using a Super Potion here to heal the Magneton, but instead he just goes for Supersonic. Despite the compounding status conditions, Seviper's still able to knock out the Magneton and move on to his final Pokemon. And very conveniently, Shed Skin activates as soon as the Manectric hits the field. Instead of attacking, it sets up with Howl, I go for Crunch, and it gets a critical hit knocking out Watson's ace. So, first attempt victory. That was pretty solid. Well done, Seviper. The speed boost from this win is theoretically more useful for Seviper than it is for Zangoose, and with it, I should be able to outspeed every Pokemon from here on out. Emerald version has a lot of slow Pokemon. When the fastest thing in the entire game is Claydol, you know that the NPCs aren't really prioritizing speed. Okay, heading north of Mauville City, I'm going to fight the trainers that have Numel on their team. This is to get special attack EVs. There's also trainers up here who have Roselia, so I'm going to continue battling them. There are 2 trainers running on this route, and I battled the top one on the wrong tile so that I can't dodge the other one without getting caught. This is bad because he has a Skarmory and my current moveset is awful against it. Plus, I don't have enough PP for Crunch. I just decided to save here and try and run by him, but I failed 3 times in a row, taking 3 fast resets before I decided to backtrack. I should have just done this right away because I can simply walk into this building over here in the Ashy area, and then the trainer I defeated will have resumed her running and I can just sneak by on the top tile. Throughout this run, I've been picking up as many high-priced items as I can, which we will be able to sell soon to get access to Flamethrower, but it's not that useful for the major battles coming up. Maxie at the top of Mount Chimney is next. He's honestly kind of brutal because he leads with Mightyena, lowering my physical attack. I can go for Crunch here, but it's not great against the Mightyena, which obviously resists it. Because of poison, I'm able to take out his lead, then Camerupt comes in, rolls Magnitude 8, doing tons of damage, and finishes me on the next turn with Magnitude 6. I just get luckier in the next fight. I get a critical hit with Poison Fang, one-shotting the Mightyena, and then the Camerupt, instead of choosing Magnitude, just goes for Ember and I 2-shot with Crunch. Zubat's easy to clean up, so now let's head to Laveridge Town and take on Flannery. Numel's first, I one-shot. The Slugma is also a one-hit, and then Camerupt comes in. This one does not have Magnitude, unlike Maxie's, and I'm able to 2-shot using Crunch, and the Fire type just goes for Tackle instead of choosing Overheat. Bad play, Flannery, because Torkoal's next, and its Overheat would have knocked me out if the Camerupt also used the powerful Fire type move, but it didn't, so Seviper survives, and as a result, it's able to use a second Crunch, which does enough to knock out her ace. Time to go back to Mauville City. I purchased myself the TM for Flamethrower and teach it in the place of Screech. Right now against all neutral targets, this is going to be my most powerful move. Will it be enough for Norman? I'm not entirely sure. I could teach Dig to get around his slacking, but Glare could also potentially be good against it. Plus, it can't reflect damage that I deal using special moves, so Flamethrower and Crunch are going to be pretty good against his ace. Another thing working in Seviper's advantage is its speed stat, which is exactly 70 right now. This is perfect because Norman's fastest Pokemon has 69. Spin does first. Flamethrower does not one-shot and I get hit by Psybeam. Okay, I wasn't expecting that. At least I burn a Hyper Potion early into the battle. I am able to one-shot the following Vigoroth, but not the Linoon. He uses another Hyper Potion here, which is really ideal for me because the Slacking is coming up next, and I don't want him to heal this Pokemon. I figured that hitting it with a status condition would be an absolutely fantastic idea because one of 2 turns it's not going to attack, so if you can just take away the other turn with the status condition, that's always really great. However, I had forgotten the fact that Slacking has Facade, which has its damage boosted when the user is afflicted with the status condition. So he easily finishes off my Seviper. Not the greatest play by me. The obvious choice here for Seviper is just to teach Dig in the place of Glare, then I can dodge the Slacking on every turn that it would attack me, and even if I'm at low health, I'm eventually going to be able to finish his ace. It does take a while, but in the end I earn myself the 5th badge and a boost to Seviper's defense stat. This section of the game ends up being a little bit bumpier for Zangoose than I was initially expecting. It starts off with things being very smooth. I'm skipping Secret Power because I don't need it. I have Slash, which does the same amount of damage. By the way, you do need to pick up the Secret Power TM if you want to access the Hidden Power shop in Slateport City, but I can just grab the singular Hidden Power TM in Fort Tree City once I arrive there. In Fall Arbor Town, I pick up the TM for Dig, which could be useful against Norman, and I teach it in the place of Fury Cutter, which is basically not useful by this point in the game. After completing Meteor Falls, I loop around fighting Collector Hector. This is where the lumpiness begins. There's a single trainer inside the Rust Turf Tunnel, which is never a problem. His name's Hiker Mike. He has 2 Geodude and 1 Machop. I didn't want to go for Slash against the Geodude, so I just go for Dig instinctively, forgetting that they have Magnitude. Also, the Geodude pulls off a critical hit with Magnitude 8 and knocks Zangoose out. I obviously did not save before this battle, so I'm gonna have to black out here. Luckily, my waypoint was set to Mauville City, and that was my destination anyway. The bumpiness continues against Maxi. There isn't really a way to make this battle completely consistent unless you can one-shot all of his Pokemon after the Intimidate drop at the beginning of the battle. The Mightyena has a propensity to go for Sand Attack on turn number 1, and that really messes up my results here. I miss, it hits a second Sand Attack, and then I knock it out. Zubat goes down without a problem, but then Camerupt comes in, I miss Slash, it rolls Magnitude 8, and this does so much damage with a second critical hit knocking Zangoose out. Alright, Magnitude really needs to stop getting crits. By the way, if I only set up a single Swords Dance against the Mightyena, then I'm not able to one-shot it with Slash, which is really frustrating. I set up to +3, and then the Zubat gets awful as I miss over and over again. It takes Zangoose all the way down to 7 hit points before the Camerupt comes in. Question is, will Slash hit? And the answer is yes, it one-shots his ace, and with that, I head into Laveridge Town to face Flannery. This one's pretty easy. Numble's incompetent, so just set up Swords Dance here if I want, or I could knock it out, which is what I choose to do, and then set up against the Slugma. In some cases, I'm scared of it poisoning me with Smog, but because of my immunity ability, I don't have to worry about that today. It's not choosing Overheat. Her Pokemon tend to not like to choose this move if they can't one-shot you, so it's doing chip damage with Smog, but no upside for poison. I set up to +6 and then knock it out with a crit. Camerupt goes down with another critical hit, and then Torkoal comes in. I don't crit this one, but Zangoose just has enough raw damage. Flannery's defeated. Now, time for Norman. Actually, first, I'm getting ahead of myself. I am gonna get revenge on Hiker Mike, this time not using Dig, instead just setting up with Swords Dance and then using Slash to knock out his rock types. And I was forgetting one more thing. Luckily I did not forget it in the playthrough, I was just forgetting it for this narration. I need to go back to Dewford Town and face Brawly. This fight is so fast, Slash one-shots all of his Pokemon, so now it's time for Norman. Spin does first. Since it's probably going to be going for Teeter Dance and I have a Person Berry, I'm going to try and set up Swords Dance as many times as is possible. It goes for the confusing move on the first turn, and then I have to use Slash to knock it out. Slacking comes in next. I make a mistake here choosing Slash on turn 1. I should have gone for Swords Dance, anticipating counter. Luckily for me, the Slacking just uses Yawn, then it consumes its Citrus Berry, and I was left in a kind of awful position. I guess I'll go for Swords Dance now because I'm not going to knock it out unless I get a critical hit. Zangoose sleeps for a little bit, but Slacking doesn't do anything, just choosing Yawn again while I'm asleep. I don't know why the AI does this, it's always very weird. Anyway, Zangoose wakes up and knocks out his ace with one more Slash, and then the Vigoroth and Linoon are both one-hits. Zangoose has a signature move, which is Crush Claw. Unfortunately, in Pokemon Emerald, I don't think it's really that useful. I did find one niche purpose for it when I backported Zangoose into Generation 2. It helped out with damage ranges against Price's Pokemon, but in this case, I prefer holding on to Slash, at least for now. The 5-point base power increase is just not going to be helpful, and I would rather crit more often. The rival before Fort Tree City is completely incompetent because he leads with Pelipper, which likes to use Protect, giving me free Swords Dances. After that, his whole team is a series of one-hits. I grab Hidden Power, which is a Ghost-type move. In this case, I'm going to teach it right away in the place of Quick Attack, and then I make a silly mistake forgetting to deposit my HM users before going into the gym, so I have to take on this double battle, and it actually goes badly for Zangoose. I get hit by Endeavor from the Swellow after failing to one-shot, so I'm brought to low health, and that's that. I'm just gonna reset and go back, deposit my HM users, and then come in here so that I can fight these trainers one by one. They are not hard when I do things this way. Also, I set up Swords Dance on the first turn, ensuring that I one-hit the Swellow. By the way, I'm gonna play Swellow in Emerald very soon. I think it has the chance to be quite good, at least until Steven Stone. Okay, now let's face Winona. She leads with Swablu here. I set up Swords Dance against it even though I know it can go for Perish Song, but it just doesn't. It uses its other moves, I get set up to +6, and that makes me very confident about my sweep. The only Pokemon that has a chance to survive is the Skarmory because it resists Slash, and in Generation 2 to 5, Steel types resist Ghost type moves, so Hidden Power is not better here. I go for Slash, Zangoose gets a critical hit, and that's that for Winona. I teach Aerial Ace in the place of Dig because the ground type move isn't very helpful at this section of the game, and Aerial Ace could be to bypass accuracy checks. After all, Maxi in the Volcano is going to be able to lower my accuracy. But outside of that, I don't expect this flying type move to have much utility with Zangoose going forward. In Lily Cove City, I face the rival to get access to the department store. He's really easy because Tropius is his lead, and it's pretty incompetent. I just need one turn of setup, and Aerial Ace is really good during this fight. It's super effective against Tropius, Ludicolo, and Combuskin. With access to the department store, Aerial Ace has served its purpose. I'm going to teach Substitute in its place, and then I purchase some vitamins. I definitely make the wrong choice here going for Carbos. I don't know, Zangoose just doesn't need the speed. I should have known that and gone for Protein instead. What was I doing here? As I head up Mount Pyre, I want to talk about Hidden Power Ghost and why I went for this typing when I have access to Shadow Ball at this point in the game. And the answer is pretty simple. It takes quite a bit of time to go up the tower fighting some mandatory trainers to get access to the Ghost type TM, whereas Hidden Power Ghost is incredibly fast to pick up in Fort Tree City. Zangoose with Swords Dance is so powerful it doesn't really need a lot of coverage, and normal and ghost type moves together pair really well. The only Pokemon I don't have good coverage against are ground types, especially Earthquake users, because I can't use Dig to counter them out. That said, I could use one of Zangoose's many special moves to counter them, but that's also not required, because once I arrive in Sutopolis City, I'm going to get access to Brick Break. Ghost and fighting type moves have neutral coverage against every target in the game, and that's why I went with Hidden Power Ghost, to save some time not picking up Shadow Ball and still have an option that hits ghost types. Plus, I wanted a move that would make Tate and Liza trivial. Now, one thing I should be doing in this section of the game is running a Person Berry instead of the Silk Scarf. Zangoose has enough damage, but Confusion can really mess me up if I'm setting up with Swords Dance. This double battle with the Team Aqua members ends up being pretty sketchy because of Confusion. I could have lost this, and I did not save before the fight. Luckily, Zangoose does pull through. However, I am going to need to be more careful here in my second playthrough. Maxi inside the Volcano is really trivial if you have Substitute. Just set it up against the Mightyena, then set up with Swords Dance and sweep his remaining team members. The Crobat is faster so it can break my Substitute, but this is too little too late. I complete the Aqua Hideout defeating Matt, the most stylish trainer in all of Emerald, and then I realize that I still don't have good moves against Skarmory. Birdkeeper Aiden has caused problems in the past. Luckily, I get another critical hit against this Steel type here, so that's 2 for 2 now. Upon arriving arriving in Pacific Log Town, I pick up the TM for return. There are 2 of these available in Pokemon Emerald. One of them is in Fall Arbor Town, and you can pick it up before Flannery, but I tend to not like that option, and I didn't opt for it here with Zangoose because it saves more time doing things this way, provided whatever other move I'm using, like Slash in this case, has enough damage, and it definitely did. Because Zangoose is an erratic growth rate Pokemon, I'm not worried about using rare candies early into this playthrough. It's not that early, but I think now is the moment, so I'm going to use them before Tate and Liza, bringing Zangoose up to level 56. I assume this is going to make the fight extremely easy. Turn 1, I am not going to go for setup. I need to go on the offensive right away. This is the primary reason I use the rare candies, and unfortunately for me, Hidden Power just barely doesn't have enough damage to one-shot the Claydol. I'm hoping that that's a range, and I will be able to knock it out with my follow-up hit, because Tate and Liza have 4 Hyper Potions, and if you're not knocking their Pokemon out in a single hit, things get really awful here. I'm not taking that much damage from Earthquake though, so while they're using their Hyper Potion, I'm just going to target down the Xatu to avoid confusion. I didn't equip the Person Berry for this fight despite what I said earlier on. Lunatone is a one-hit because it has low-ish physical defense. Solrock comes out. I then use Return on the Claydol because it will be doing more damage, and this allows me to one-shot. Solrock's the only Pokemon left over, and it's not able to survive a Hidden Power Ghost, so this fight ends up being trivial. Although there is an alternative approach to this fight that does save some time, which I'll talk about in my second run. For now, let's talk about Seviper. I'm going back to Dewford Island after Norman to pick up the Sludge Bomb TM, which is a fantastic same-type attack bonus move. 135 effective power. That's the thing about Seviper. When compared with Zangoose, it is the Pokemon that always has more diverse coverage. Right now I'm running Flamethrower, Sludge Bomb, Crunch, and Dig. This doesn't give me great options against the rival's Marshtomp, but Crunch is just barely able to two-shot, which is all I need. I stop by the Scorched Slab, pick up the Sunny Day TM, and then head into the gym to face Winona. For this run, I've chosen to go with Hidden Power Ice, and I've taught this in the place of Dig because it's very good against Winona's team. I don't see any possible way for Seviper to lose this battle outside of maybe getting confused on the Pelipper because it has Supersonic and then hitting myself like 15 times in a row. Yes, I'm exaggerating, but really Winona has nothing going here. Seviper easily takes care of all of her Pokemon. I fight the rival again in Lily Cove City. This is another potential sketchy moment where Marshtomp could do a lot of damage. By the way, I always found it so wrong in Pokemon Emerald that his starter doesn't fully evolve by this fight. It's a little bit weird to me, and it always bothered Child Scott that we couldn't see the fully evolved starter in the Pokedex. I don't know why. It's just weird having a blank slot there until you trade or battle a friend. Luckily in this case, Crunch is just barely again able to two-shot, so I don't have to worry about its ground type moves. Inside the department store I check my EVs. I have 50 in my special attack, which is perfect because then I can use 5 calcium to boost it all the way to the threshold 100. Unfortunately, I didn't have quite enough money, so I'm only able to use 4 calcium, getting my special attack up to 90 EVs. Still, better than nothing. I had to make a choice right now which will have implications for the later stages of the game, and that was, do I teach Substitute when Seviper already has such fantastic coverage? I chose not to, thinking that the current moves would be enough, and they definitely are for Maxie inside the volcano. In Lily Cove City I pick up Rest, and then I have a bit of a silly mistake. I should have run a Person Berry for Matt. He's usually not an issue, but I get hit by Swagger, increasing my attack, and then Seviper hits itself in confusion way too many times and I end up losing here. This is a really embarrassing loss. I did not save before him, so I'm gonna black out, and I have to walk back through the entire hideout to make it back to him and then finally take my revenge. He's a bad trainer. His Mightyena doesn't even have any damage dealing moves, and his ace is a Golbat. Hopefully you can see why I don't save for this battle. Okay, let's talk about the fluctuating growth rate in the end of the mid-game in Emerald version. At every odd level, it requires significantly more experience. So I want to alternate between rare candies and training. Train every even level, rare candy every odd level. I do this type of training until level 52, and I really didn't want to use too many rare candies before Tate and Liza. After all, I have Crunch, and it should be pretty good against them. If I burn my candies now, and then I arrive at Steven Stone, and I have to be level 85 to 95, I am really going to regret using too many candies this early on. So let's see if it's possible at this level. I go for Crunch on the Claydol, and I am able to one-shot, which is perfect, so I avoid Earthquake on turn 1. They send in on Lunatone next. I go for Crunch against it to avoid Hypnosis, and I also get the one-shot. That was their most specially defensive Pokemon, so I am going to one-shot everything from here, unless the Xatu setting up Calm Mind messes me up. But I do have physical damage if I want to use Sludge Bomb. I tried Crunch, it doesn't do enough, but that means they're going to use a Hyper Potion. So I can knock out the Soul Rock while they heal, and then target down the Xatu, which is their only remaining Pokemon. I go for Sludge Bomb for physical damage, it doesn't do enough, but it does poison, and with the status condition damage, I will finish off their final Pokemon. Unless it's able to one-shot with Psychic. It did set up Calm Mind, so this does massive damage, and Seviper pulls through on a tiny sliver of health. I think I want this to feel a little bit better for the second run. That was fairly sketchy, but I'm glad I pulled through. The multi-battle in the Space Center is not a problem, and Archie is incompetent as usual. I was expecting Juan to be bad, but he isn't, because I don't have a great move against the Whiscash. It sets up Amnesia first turn, and then I can't go for Crunch again, so I resort to Sludge Bomb, which doesn't do enough, and I take a decent amount of damage in the process. Then Kingdra comes out. It does a little bit of damage with Ice Beam before I take care of it, but my health is low now, and I'm not going to one-shot either the Celio or the Crawdaunt. Both of them can do chip damage, and because of that, Seviper loses. Not great. I'm going to go into the basement of the gym and do a bunch of optional training here to get a higher level to take on Juan again. 58 should be enough. This way with Amnesia, I'm able to two-shot the Whiscash, even using Sludge Bomb, and then it's not able to use one turn of Earthquake. Obviously, I could be teaching Giga Drain for this fight, but I think holding on to that for Glacia and then Wallace is the better choice. Wally, simple, because I have fantastic coverage. Before the league with Seviper, I'm going to collect more rare candies, just because with the fluctuating growth rate, and then at level 62, I'm feeling ready to start. Let's loop around now and see how Zangoose is doing. Well, it stomps the multi-battle, stomps Archie as you would expect, and it also stomps Juan. I can use Substitute here to avoid confusion from the Love Disc, which makes Swords Dance essentially free, and after that the remaining team members are all one-shots. Wally's a little bit different. I was playing overconfidently here. I go into the fight with lower than full health. After Substitute, I only have orange health remaining, and I set up to +4 on the Altaria. I'm just hoping that this allows me to one-shot the Magneton. It's the only Pokemon that has the chance to survive. And of course, Zangoose's return is just so powerful, so Magneton doesn't stand a chance. I'm not going to do any additional training in Victory Road, so with Zangoose, I'm ready to head directly into the Elite Four. Sydney is first. He's annoying because his Mightyena has Intimidate. That said, I can set up Substitute here while the Mightyena tries to spam Sand Attack, and then I can establish Swords Dance essentially as much as I want. It's unlikely to break my substitutes using Double Edge or Crunch. It could use Roar, but I can just play around that by attacking when I get to +3 attack, and this is more than enough. I one-shot all of Sydney's remaining Pokemon. Phoebe, Substitute, remains amazing here. I don't even heal going into this fight because I know the Dusclops is going to go for Protect, and then it's not going to be able to break my sub because its only damage dealing move is Shadow Punch, and it can't hit me with Confuse Ray or Curse because I'm behind a Substitute. So setup here is essentially free, and then Hidden Power Ghost just completely destroys the remaining team members she has. So Substitute is a really good move in Generation 3. It continues being fantastic against Glacia, who likes to set up Hail on turn 1, giving me time to establish Substitute and then Swords Dance. After that, with +2, I one-shot all of her team members, even the Wall Rain. And the move just continues to be excellent against Drake. I set up here. Again, I haven't healed because why would you? Zangoose is just fantastic. I set up Swords Dance to +2, and then I one-shot all of his Pokemon. Zangoose is a beast. This thing is so good. Let's just continue the spree against Wallace. Substitute turn 1. Wailord luckily goes for Rain Dance instead of Water Spout. I choose not to set up Swords Dance, fearing that it will go for Water Spout, but then I one-shot, which I wasn't really hoping for. I set up one turn of Swords Dance on the following Tentacruel, and it breaks my Substitute. But I don't think I need the Substitute for the remainder of the battle. I'll just attack now. Tentacruel goes down, Ludicolo comes in next. It does go for Leech Seed, which is annoying, but Zangoose evades the attack and knocks it out. Whiscash follows, Return one-shots, then Gyarados comes in, triggering Intimidate, but Return still has enough damage. Milotic is last, and with +1, I still have enough damage. Alright, there's no way that the league is going to be this easy with Seviper. Well, I'm going into it without Substitute, which is probably a mistake, because we just saw how fantastic it is. Sydney, though, is not really that much of a threat. I one-shot the Phydiana, the Shift Tree, and the Cacturn. Both the Crawdaunt and the Absol take 2 turns, but they like to set up Swords Dance, so they're essentially free, with the Absol doing a little bit of damage with Rock Slide before I take care of it. Against Phoebe, I thought that Crunch would just be enough. And it kind of is, although the Ace Dusclops does have Earthquake, which does a lot of damage. It consumes a Citrus Berry, I knock it out, the following Bayonet goes down to 1 hit, leaving only the Sableye, and I hate this, but it sets up Double Team and causes things to go wrong here because I keep missing. Because of this, it goes for Nightshade, followed by Shadow Ball, and Seviper faints, taking 1 reset to the Ghost-type Specialist. Pretty annoying that Double Team was the reason, but she's not able to luck through and get a second win. For Glacia, I teach Giga Drain in the place of Crunch. This way I can gain back a little bit of health on the Celio as well as the Walrein. Flamethrower is better against the Glalie because it doesn't have thick fat. I have chosen Hidden Power Ice for Seviper purely to make Drake as easy as possible. I didn't want any resets here and 4 times damage against the Altaria, the Flygon, and the Salamence, so his team is essentially useless outside of the Shelgon, which is already incompetent, and the Kingdra, which is 1 Pokemon which I can easily manage. So the league was quite easy for Seviper, but Wallace is an exception. I do a decent amount of damage to the Wailord with Sludge Bomb turn 1 to avoid max damage Water Spout, but it goes for Blizzard, and this does about a third, which is not a great way to start. Then he sends in Gyarados, which triggers Intimidate, so Sludge Bomb's gonna be less useful from here on out, and Hidden Power Ice is just not doing enough damage. Plus, Gyarados can set up Dragon Dance and then go for super effective Earthquake, which destroys Seviper in a single hit. I tried again. I don't know what I was hoping for. Luck, I guess. And I do get it. I poison the Gyarados. This allows me to 2-shot when using Sludge Bomb. Whiscash follows, but I have Giga Drain to manage it. And then Tentacruel comes in, and I don't really have good moves here. Like, Sludge Bomb can't do much. Giga Drain can heal me a little bit, but it's also doing about a quarter, meaning Wallace is going to heal with a full restore, buying more time for Tentacruel to do damage. So this ends up being Seviper's undoing. I think I need to use rare candies now. I have 6 remaining, so I can boost Seviper up to level 72 before trying again. I'm also using Rest here in combination with a Chesto Berry because I assume I'm going to need to heal later into the fight. This is the implication of not teaching Substitute earlier on. There are tools that Seviper has to manage this fight, but they're not as good as Substitute would be, because if I establish it on the Wailord after doing damage on turn 1, then I'll avoid the Intimidate from Gyarados and Sludge Bomb will be far more effective. I lose 1 more time, and then Wallace displays some weird behavior that I haven't seen before. After damaging the Wailord, he switches it out, sending in Whiscash, which I guess is good because I can just knock it out right away. Gyarados comes in next, but I'm prepared. This time around, I have given Seviper the White Herb so that I can counter out Intimidate's debuff. This is not a strategy I typically use against Wallace, but in this case it's really good. Now with Sludge Bomb, I can 2-shot the Gyarados. After that, I take care of the Wailord, and then Tentacruel comes out. I have Rest here just so I can stall it out so that it has no more Hydro Pump PP. This is a little bit sketchy. It's nice if the Tentacruel misses once along the way, but I just heal over and over again. By the way, Rest is actually pretty good in combination with Shed Skin. While it isn't something I can depend on, it does occasionally mean that I spend less turns asleep. Slowly, I'm able to knock out the Tentacruel, and I started to get afraid here of running out of PP. I get a lucky burn along the way with Flamethrower, which does accelerate my progress, but by the time the Tentacruel faints, I only have 3 uses of Giga Drain and Sludge Bomb left over. One of these is enough to finish off the Ludicolo, but I was really scared that Milotic would stall me out using Recover. Turn 1, I use Giga Drain. It does less than half. Milotic goes for Surf. I tried Giga Drain again, which doesn't finish it, and I'm making a mistake here. I should have gone for Sludge Bomb for a little bit more damage. Wallace heals the Milotic. I go for Giga Drain again, but after that I realize that I need to be using Sludge Bomb. I go for it, and the champion's final Pokemon faints. Okay, so we're getting close to the end. Let's switch back over to Zangoose and see how it manages Steven's Stone. Well, for this fight, I'm going to teach Brick Break, and I'm also going to run the leftovers because I think healing is important. Alright, now let's take on Steven's Stone. Turn 1, Substitute. I am hoping that this is going to hold through a single Steel Wing. Unfortunately, it isn't. Skarmory breaks my Substitute right away. I try re-establishing it, hoping for the damage range, but it doesn't look like that's the case. Also, if I am spamming Substitute too much here, it's because I'm waiting for the use of Toxic, which is just never going to come. Eventually, I realize that. I try to set up Swords Dance, but I've messed up too much. That's 1 reset. I tried to fight 2 more times like this, but the fact that it's breaking my Substitute consistently means the move is essentially useless on my set, so after 2 more losses, I head back to Verdanturf Town to pick up the TM for Attract. This move is so good in the late game of Generation 3 and Generation 4. I recently got a comment suggesting that Attract is very similar to Double Team and I should also ban it. Evasion boosting moves and Attract do function very differently. With evasion boosting moves, you want to set it up all at once, and it gives you a better benefit at the end of the day. Pokemon will only have a 33% chance to hit your Pokemon, whereas with Attract, it's always 50%. You need to set up both of the moves 6 times for a team like this, but with Double Team, you can just do it against one specific Pokemon and then sweep the remainder of the team. Whereas with Attract, you need to consistently set it up against each new Pokemon, and it only yields a 50% bonus once you've set it up. Also, Attract cannot work against Claydol or Metagross during this fight, making it significantly worse than Double Team, at least in this case. That's not true in a game like Heart Gold, where all of the Pokemon are gendered on the final team, so you can't just spam Attract against every single one. Right now, I'm not going to ban it, because then a bunch of my results up until this point would no longer be valid, and I would have to go back and redo major portions of the tier list, but I will continue thinking about it. If it's ruining the experience as a viewer for all of you, please let me know about it in the comments and then I'll address it. My strategy here is pretty simple. Use Attract to make the Skarmory a little bit less consistent, then set up with Swords Dance against it. After getting to +6, I can then use Brick Break to 2-shot the flying type. Brick Break 1-shots Armaldo after that. I can use Hidden Power Ghost to take care of the Claydol. Aggron goes down to a single Brick Break. Cradily follows. It's also a 1-shot, leaving only Metagross. It survives, and it uses Meteor Mash, inflicting massive damage. But Zangoose survives, gets a second Brick Break, and with that, finishes the game. It clocks in with a time of 1 hour 18 minutes and 44 seconds, with 10 faults consisting of 9 resets and 1 blackout at level 71, with a game time of 4 hours and 50 minutes. Okay, so it's time to switch back to Seviper and see how it does in the late game. This is the part of the run that I have feared most. My first strategy is using Sunny Day in combination with Flamethrower. 1 turn of setup is going to give me a lot of benefit here. I can 1-shot the Skarmory after that with Flamethrower. But then Claydol comes in. I was hoping for the 2-hit with Giga Drain so that I can heal some health from the Steel Wing hit, although Giga Drain is just not doing that much damage. I'm going to have to 3-shot here, and Steven might use a full restore, but he doesn't even get a chance because Earthquake finishes Seviper. So this is definitely not the right approach. I try using Hidden Power Ice next. This also is just barely not 2-shotting the Claydol. Now I'm going to go back and do a bunch of training here in Victory Road to level up a little bit more. This is objectively a mistake. There is another option to manage the Claydol, and I'm just missing it. See if you can figure it out right now. I come back at a higher level. Now I'm trying Giga Drain, Flamethrower, Substitute, and Rest. This way I can block 1 hit from the Claydol, but things are still awful because if I knock it out, then Aggron comes in. I've lost my sub by this point. It can just go for Earthquake and finish me. If I'm able to make it through the Claydol with my Substitute intact, which could happen with a critical hit, or if it chooses to go for Reflect on turn 1 instead of attacking with Earthquake, I would also need to 2-shot, and Giga Drain's not going to pull that off. But I can make it to the Aggron with good health and then survive a single hit from Earthquake. But then Metagross follows, and Flamethrower is not going to 1-hit unless I get a crit. Alright, time to resort to Attract. Here, let me make a case for why this move is okay in these solo challenges. If I wasn't using Attract, I would just have to level like 10 more times, which is a massive waste of my time, and it doesn't necessarily make the outcome of the battle more interesting for all of you. It's just, oh, I went to level 85 and now I can 2-shot the Pokemon instead of 3-shotting. I think without Attract, some Pokemon will actually struggle to complete the game at all, especially first stage Pokemon, which I have just started dipping my toes into, with the likes of Nincada and Gulpin, 2 amazing first stage Pokemon. Anyway, this time around with Attract, I get stuck in a really bad situation. I'm not doing enough damage to the Cradily, and it sets up with Ingrain, and then it can gain back health. This is so annoying. Plus, Steven is using full restores, so I end up running out of PP and having to resort to Struggle. The issue is that the Armaldo is following. I was hoping it would do less damage, but Ancient Power is doing a ridiculous amount, so in the end, Seviper takes another loss. Okay, I'm gonna flip-flop sides now because I'm gonna tell you that Attract truly is just luck-based. I can win this fight, I'm just going to have to get lucky with Attract. Although, I do need to make one more change to my moveset, because running Hidden Power Ice is vastly superior to running Giga Drain. This way, I have better damage against the Cradily once it finally comes in. I reset here so many times until I got the battle that I needed. In the end, with 32 faults, I didn't have to resort to leveling higher with a fluctuating growth rate Pokemon, and I think that saves time. But in this first run with Seviper, I'm definitely not getting the best time. game. I finished the game in 2 hours, 15 minutes and 20 seconds, with 32 faults consisting of 31 resets and 1 blackout at level 75 with a game time of 6 hours and 58 minutes. For the optimization process, I'm going to loop in Ike the Killer, who is playing Pokemon Emerald at a much higher level than I am currently. I'm constantly trying to improve my abilities, and Ike the Killer is someone that I'm always striving to be more like in Generation 3. So thanks Ike for all the inspiration, as well as helping me optimize these two Pokemon. Let's start with Zangoose. And first of all, I'm going to talk about my rules in Pokemon Emerald. Up until now, I have not allowed myself to catch an Abra unless the Pokemon requires grinding in the wild for Roxanne. That said, if I am going to grind in the wild to face Roxanne, then I should be able to catch an Abra. But with my current rule set, I don't have an HM flag that allows me to consistently run into this Pokemon. So even when I have to grind to face Roxanne, it's not always guaranteed that I'm going to pick up Abra. And that just feels a little bit unfair, even if I want to implement the rules as I have up until now. So I needed to add an HM flag to Emerald in order to toggle it on and off so that Abra only shows up on this route until I add it to my Pokedex. Since I've already done this with Pokemon like Tailo, Meryl, and Zigzagoon, my other HM users, it seemed like it would be really easy, but then we ran into a whole bunch of technical problems with how we managed the game state and getting the overlay to update, and it ended up taking way longer than expected to add the Abra flag. This has been secretly behind the scenes one of the reasons I have resisted making this change. With these solo challenges, I'm always prioritizing 3 things: fairness between Pokemon, accuracy of results, and the fun that I have while playing the challenges. I don't want to implement rules that make the game boring for me to play. For example, Double Team makes the game boring because I just spam that move to solve pretty much every problem. And up until now, I have personally found Attract to be much more fun to use. After all, in games like Crystal, you can't always use Attract because of how the DV mechanic works. In terms of fairness, there is no difference if I catch an Abra or I don't catch an Abra, as long as I'm consistent between all of the Pokemon that I'm playing. If I catch an Abra, every Pokemon will benefit from it because Abra saves a lot of time in Pokemon Emerald. In terms of accuracy of results, again, it doesn't really matter as long as I'm consistent between all of the Pokemon that I'm playing with my approach to Abra. And third, and this is the thing that really convinced me, a lot of people have written in the comments that I should just give myself an Abra as a convenience factor. After all, it's helping me navigate the overworld, it isn't helping me win battles with the Pokemon. If it was, then I would definitely ban it. But in this case, I have decided to go ahead with forcing the Abra encounter so that every Pokemon can get access to this HM user. Of course, I'm gonna have to go back and redo a bunch of results. I'll do that over on stream sometime, and then maybe make a summary video for all of those results once they've finally come in. Okay, Roxanne, level 13 with Zangoose for Fury Cutter. The solution here is very simple. Swords Dance twice, then use Fury Cutter. It does enough damage to one-shot the following 2 Pokemon after the first Geodude goes down. There's a little bit of risk here, but overall with Zangoose, I never lost once to Roxanne when using this strategy. Okay, next section of the game. Skip Brawly. There's no reason to fight him at this point in the run. To make the rival before Mauville City as easy as possible, I can train with Zangoose in the surrounding regions to get to level 19 so that I have access to Slash. Now, there are some major differences between the first playthrough and this run. Instead of using Hidden Power Ghost, I have decided that Hidden Power Ground is far superior. It gives me a better move to knock out Maxie's Camerupt with, which can avoid some resets here, plus it's really good against Flannery, who's next. When I calculated damage ranges for this fight, I realized that Slash won't knock out the Torkoal unless I set up more with Swords Dance. +4 is just not enough, at least at level 28. At level 30 it is consistent, but leveling up 2 more times with the erratic growth rate this early on doesn't make a lot of sense, and it's going to waste more time than it's worth. Hidden Power Ground just solves this battle at level 28, 2 uses of Swords Dance, then I can sweep her entire team. I have one embarrassing loss to Slacking because it used Counter and I didn't know my damage ranges well enough. Oh well, let's keep going. After defeating Norman, I'm going to use Rare Candies. I want to use these as early on as possible into the run. So once I get to level 32, I use 5 going up to level 37 before making it to Fort Tree City. Here's one benefit to using Abra in these playthroughs. I can walk all the way to Lily Cove City and get access to the department store before teleporting back to face Winona. This means I can use vitamins earlier into the playthrough when I have accumulated less EVs. That allows me to take Zangoose from 43 in its attack all the way up to 100. Winona is really easy. I still have Slash. It's fine. Zangoose doesn't really need very many moves during this playthrough. Hidden Power and Slash pair together very well throughout the mid-game. That's why I still have Fury Cutter. There's just no better move to teach at this point. Well, technically I could teach Substitute. I forgot to do that. It is definitely the better move for fights like Maxi where you can block a bunch of his shenanigans. But in the end, I still pull through with no resets. Okay, let's talk about Tate and Liza because this one's hilarious. I'm gonna grab the return TM from Pacific Log Town, and it turns out after a single use of Swords Dance, return one-shots all of their Pokemon, even the rock types. Also, it doesn't matter how I approach this fight, there are two ways to win. You can knock out the Claydol right away, or you can knock out the Xatu to avoid Confuse Ray. Because my Zangoose is holding a Citrus Berry, it's just gonna have enough health to survive no matter what they do, unless the Claydol gets a critical hit while it's attacking. For this reason, I target down the Xatu first, because I don't want to get hit by Confuse Ray, and then the Lunatone follows, and I don't want to get hit by Hypnosis. Simple. In the end, Hidden Power Ghost is not required, and we also don't need to pick up Shadow Ball. That's a good amount of time saved. Remember when I mentioned that Phoebe is basically incompetent against Zangoose because of her lead Dusclops? Yeah, I can just set up Swords Dance here and then sweep her team with Hidden Power Ground because her ghosts don't have Levitate. This allows me to have Brick Break during the league, speeding up the battles against Sydney and Glacia. Swords Dance on Drake is safe because he has Protect and he usually goes for it on turn 1. And then against Wallace, I have some problems. The Ludicolo sets up with Double Team and gets me. Really frustrating. In the end though, the solution here is just set up Swords Dance against the Whale Lord and then sweep his team. I should have done that. This is another player error. So the only two faults that Zangoose has so far are because I'm not good at the game, not because Zangoose isn't good at the game. This Pokemon is fantastic, and at level 68, it can take on Steven Stone. The strategy is simple. Attract the Skarmory, set up Swords Dance, and then sweep his entire team. Here, Hidden Power Ground is superior to Hidden Power Ghost. While I have to two-shot the Claydol, it's just not very competent because it's going to set up screens against Zangoose instead of attacking. This is because Zangoose is a normal type, unlike Seviper where Earthquake is super effective. Hidden Power Ground ensures that I one-shot the Metagross, and so the rest of Steven's team is consistent. The only way to lose here is if the Skarmory knocks you out. In my second run with it, Zangoose clocks in with a time of 1 hour, 11 minutes, and 35 seconds, with 2 resets at level 71. This is a game time of 4 hours and 33 minutes. Okay, let's talk about Ike the Killer. He is so good at these games, it makes me incredibly jealous. I've got to improve my skill just to be on his level. He had previously run Zangoose once before, but when he came back to do it again, he finished with a time of 1 hour, 8 minutes, and 52 seconds. I will have you know he does all of this without calculating damage ranges. He is just that kind of guy. Anyway, after I calculated damage ranges and sent him all of my findings, he came back and did another playthrough with Zangoose. In his third run, he finished with a time of 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 36 seconds, with 0 faults at level 71, and a game time of 3 hours and 59 minutes. I don't think I played that badly in my second playthrough, and 2 resets definitely doesn't account for 8 minutes of time. So he is just playing far more efficiently than I am at every stage of the game. If you're wondering what contributes to this, it's like how fast are you making it through menus? How fast are you teaching HM moves to your HM users? How quickly are you able to navigate the overworld without mistakes? All of those little things really do add up in runs like this, and they can make for massive time differences between players. Part of these solo runs is accepting where my skill is currently at, so right now I'm going to leave this as Zangoose's time and move on to Seviper. Last time around, I overleveled for Roxanne, so I can cut out some of the trainers in the early game, specifically the rich people that have nuggets on their Pokemon. They will be useful later on. Inside the gym, I only battled 2 optional trainers, bringing Seviper up to level 12. This is enough to two-shot both of Roxanne's Geodude, and that means I'm going to make it to the Nose Pass in decent shape. There are some other details though that I want to cover. Leveling up from 12 to 13 after the first Geodude gives me more damage on the second Geodude, meaning Roxanne will spam out both of her potions here and then not use them on the Nose Pass. Also, getting hit by 1 Rock Tomb leaves Seviper with 16 speed for her final Pokemon. That is 1 point lower, ensuring that her ace never chooses Rock Tomb. Okay, let's talk about catching Abra, because for Seviper, it's actually really easy. You can use Wrap to trap the Abra so that teleport fails, and then I can catch it very simply in a Great Ball that was gifted to me early into the game. Okay, let's talk about Brawly. This fight is actually so sketchy. I just barely survived the Makuhita with 1 hit point left over. While you watch this incredibly tense battle play out, which I have spoiled for you, I'm sorry, I want to talk about a way that Brawly could be done a little bit easier. I'm going to backtrack to yoink some nuggets off of those rich trainers' teams so that I can get Flamethrower just a little bit easier in this run. It's still not going to be fast enough for Watson though, but Seviper will be fine for that fight, believe me. Okay, so Brawly's defeated, but I could have fought him at a higher level. Here's how it works. I clear out everyone in the beach house, getting more experience. Then after the museum, I could potentially go north of Slate Port City and continue my training. After all of that, I could teleport back to Dewford Island, take the ferry, defeat the trainers, grabbing my nuggets. After that, I teleport back to Dewford Island again. This allows me to fight Brawly at this stage of the game at a higher level, making him more consistent. If I did this playthrough for a third time, that would definitely be how I would approach this section of the game. Now the rival, the only way here is flinching the Marsh Tomp with Bite. Luckily that's a 30% chance, so it happens on my first attempt and I don't lose any time. Okay, let's talk about Watson. Since I'm using Thief to steal the nuggets earlier on, I have it here available to me, and so once I knock out the Magneton using Crunch, I can use Thief to steal the Manectric Citrus Berry and then knock it out with Crunch. This just ensures the Manectric doesn't use its Citrus Berry to waste time getting more turns to attack me. Okay, Hidden Power type change up. In this case with Seviper, I'm running Hidden Power Water after looking at Ike the Killer's route. I think this is superior in the early game and the mid game because it handles all the cam-ups which are otherwise problematic. Maxi is no issue with this move on my set, and it makes Flannery so much easier as well. Now I really wish I could get to level 38 to take on Norman, but that would involve way too much optional training and it would slow the run down. So I'm doing this battle at level 35, which is slightly risky. To mitigate some of this risk, I've improved my damage ranges holding the charcoal to boost the damage of Flamethrower. Then I can use Dig to finish off the slacking, and while it does take time, it's very effective. Without Hidden Power Ice for Winona, she's not much more difficult because Sludge Bomb is just good enough against all of the other Pokemon. I have Flamethrower for the Skarmory, and then after that the Tropius and the Pelipper are both just not very good. The only Pokemon I'm worried about is the Altaria, but even if it sets up with Dragon Dance and attacks with Earthquake, Seviper is going to survive. In the department store I buy myself Calcium, then I teach Substitute, which I didn't have last time, but it's going to greatly help Seviper, especially against Wallace, who I think is the most difficult trainer in this run that requires planning and can be done consistently. Steven Stone requires pure luck just because of the fluctuating growth rate. It makes absolutely no sense to train to a high level to make him consistent. So how I'm going to have Substitute on my set without giving up Sludge Bomb or Flamethrower is pretty easy. Teach Hidden Power Water in the place of Crunch, take on Maxi, and then I can go back to the move reminder, get Crunch back before Tate and Liza. It's key to go into this fight around level 52 to 54, holding the black glasses so that Crunch has enough damage to one-shot the Claydol. I'm really happy that a higher level wasn't required because this synergizes extremely well with the remainder of the game. Juan can be kind of sketchy. I should have set up Substitute on the Love Disc, but I just made a mistake. If I had had the defense set up, then the Whiscash wouldn't have been as much of an issue, and I would have made it through this without a very close end to the fight. The Celio goes for Aurora Beam, taking me down to 26 hit points. It's just lucky that my Seviper is able to one-shot the following Crawdaunt. By the way, that damage range is a 64.8% chance to one-hit, so I did have to get lucky in order to win. It wasn't like that was a guarantee. Okay, Elite Four. I'm going to black out here 2 to 3 times, training Seviper up to around level 66 or 67. Then I'm going to teach Giga Drain in the place of Crunch, battle Glacia, defeat her, and move on to Drake for the first time. Well, it should be for the first time, unless I've got lucky up until here. Now, the Dragon Specialist isn't particularly good against Seviper, so I can battle him just using a combination of Substitute and Sludge Bomb. It's a little bit less efficient than using Hidden Power Ice, but having Hidden Power Water for the prior sections of the game does speed things up much more, at least in my opinion. If Ice was still neutral against Fire like it was in Generation 1, then that would have been the better choice. Okay, let's talk about Wallace. This one requires a lot of finesse. Giga Drain turn 1 so that he uses a full restore and does very little damage with Water Spout on Wailord. Then Substitute followed by Giga Drain and then knock the Wailord out. This way I'll have my Substitute intact when Gyarados comes out and preserve my attack stat, two-shotting with Sludge Bomb. Whiscash is a one-hit with Giga Drain. Then I want to use either Giga Drain or Flamethrower for chip damage on the Tentacruel. I need to avoid Wallace using a full restore on it if I can. I went for Flamethrower here, but I think this is a mistake. If I had burned, he probably would have full restored, buying himself one more turn. Instead, I should have Giga Drained followed by 2 Sludge Bombs to knock the Tentacruel out without him using a full restore. Either way, once I make it to the Ludicolo, I have essentially won unless the Milotic gets a critical hit. Sludge Bomb one-hits Ludicolo, and then against Milotic I use Giga Drain so that I survive the Surf on red health and knock out his ace. This means Seviper has cleared the league at level 72. This feels like the level is too low, but it really isn't. This is the perfect place for Seviper to be going into the fight against Steven Stone. I go back to the move reminder, get Crunch in the place of Giga Drain. This was the solution I was mentioning before because it has 10 more base power when compared with Hidden Power Ice. It will be able to two-shot the Claydol at level 73. I train a small amount getting to that level threshold, and then I take on Steven. Okay, let's go through the damage ranges. 2-shot on Skarmory, Claydol, Aggron, and Metagross. 3-shot on Armaldo, and 4 4-shot on Cradily with the upside for a 22.9% chance to 3-hit, although this is very unlikely because Cradylee's probably going to go for Ingrain and gain back some health. If I leveled to 75, I would have a 41.4% chance to one-shot the Skarmory with Flamethrower, but that's really not necessary because the Skarmory is likely going to go for spikes. I set up a tract against it just so I can hopefully get my substitute up without taking more damage. Then knocking the Skarmory out with a damage range that takes it into full restore range is advantageous for me. This gives Seviper more turns to gain back health using the leftovers, meaning its health will be higher for the Claydol, which disincentivizes it from using Earthquake. That said, it did go for Earthquake first turn against me when I was fighting Steven Stone, which is incredibly frustrating, because then on the Aggron, after 2-shotting with Crunch, I have to set up a tract and then substitute and just hope that it doesn't go for Earthquake. I need the substitute to be in place against the Metagross in order to win at level 73. Metagross's Psychic does between 100 and 118% damage. If I level Seviper 2 more times to 75, it does between 94 and 111% damage. And in order to survive every single hit from Psychic, barring a critical hit, I have to level to 80, which then Psychic does between 84 and 99% damage. Because of the fluctuating growth rate, gaining 7 levels makes absolutely no sense for consistency against the Metagross, so I'm taking the riskier strategy that has more upside. Now, while this is risky, it's really not that bad. If you make it past the Aggron with a substitute in place, you're going to knock out the Metagross because even with the Citrus Berry, Flamethrower is able to 2-shot at level 73. The damage range here is very consistent, 60% to 71% damage, so it's never going to do enough damage to put the Metagross in healing range, and if I crit, I will do enough to one-shot. Now, ironically, the most difficult Pokemon on Steven Stone's team is the Cradily, mostly because you're beat up by this point, and with low health, it is hard to establish a tract, then use substitute and heal enough while knocking the Cradily out with Crunch and Flamethrower. Both Crunch and Flamethrower have good secondary effects here. Really, the problem is if you're just taking too much damage and your health is too low, you can't consistently reset substitute and buy more time against Cradily. I ended up taking 2 incredibly painful resets here because each battle took so much time, and this really bloated Seviper's finish time. By the time I make it back to the Cradily for a 3rd time, I am in a better position and I knock it out, but my health is incredibly low for the Armaldo. Luckily, I have a 3-shot here, but the damage range isn't ideal because Steven Stone is going to heal unless I use 1 Crunch. I figured this out while I was going. I use Flamethrower 2 more times following that up, and Armaldo goes down. So in my second run with Seviper, I clock in with a time of 1 hour, 33 minutes, and 59 seconds, with 2 resets and 2 blackouts for a total of 4 faults. It finished the game at level 73, which I'm really impressed by. Honestly, Flamethrower is the saving grace here for Seviper. Imagine if this thing had to rely on Hidden Power Fire. Oh yeah, and I forgot it's game time, 5 hours and 49 minutes. Okay, so let's get to the tier lists and rank these Pokemon. First of all, I just want to say if you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, thank you so much. It keeps the lights on for me and my team. It really does mean the world to us. So Zangoose. It had a good first run, but it wasn't as good as maybe I was expecting. Still, it was able to earn the fastest time in my first playthrough tier list. Its time, 1 hour, 18 minutes, and 44 seconds, is only 14 seconds faster than Primeape's 1 hour, 18 minute, and 58 second time. So the top of the list right now is very competitive. Seviper's result, of course, is nowhere near as good, but a 2 hour and 15 minute time is still decently competitive with a lot of the older results that I've had. So it earns itself a placement in the C tier, behind Cradily and Wailord, ahead of Vigoroth and Roselia. Okay, so now the tier list that really matters, my follow-up attempts. In this case, Zangoose's performance wasn't quite as good as you might have expected. It still earned itself a very good spot at the top of the A tier, ahead of Medicham and Primeape, but it is still behind Blaziken and Swampert. That said, I should mention, my current time with Blaziken is 1 hour, 5 minutes, and 32 seconds, so Ike the Killer's time definitely beat that, but I do want to say that his times with Blaziken and Swampert were both better than mine, so I still think that Blaziken and Swampert are superior solo running Pokemon when compared with Zangoose, at least in Pokemon Emerald. The medium slow growth rate is really fantastic, and all of the starters, well, except Sceptile, are quite good in this format. Seviper, on the other hand, massively improved its results between the first playthrough and the second run. However, it's still not that competitive within the overall tier list. Today it earns itself a placement behind Latias and Glalie in the E tier, ahead of Sharpedo and Spinda. So the rivalry between these two is settled. Zangoose is the better solo challenge Pokemon. That said, I'm really impressed with Seviper, despite so many things working against it. Its typing, its lack of setup moves, its growth rate, the fact that Steven Stone is the final trainer, it's still pulled out decent results, at least in my opinion. I definitely have a bias against poison types, thinking they're all kind of bad Pokemon, and that has really influenced me in the past. I've never put a Seviper on my team as a result. But in the end, I've learned through this video that it's a quite capable Pokemon. Thanks to Raycon for sponsoring this video. Check out my link in the description for 20% off. Now, if you've made it this far, you're incredible. I'll see you in my next video. Oh, wait. I forgot to mention just how much better Ike the Killer is than me. This was his follow-up run with Seviper after we went through all the numbers. So yeah, about 10 minutes faster than my follow-up run. And this is when we're both using the same strategies. I still have a lot to learn in Pokemon Emerald. Hopefully over the next year or so, our results are going to get closer and closer together. Anyways, that's it. Thanks for watching. See you next time.